Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Hello, hello, hello. I have a question for you. Have you ever felt completely lost? You know, seeking purposeful direction that could and should propel your mission within your divine journey to that next level, but still it hasn't happened. Well, my name is Lauren Michaels Harris, and I'm the founder of P3, the Journey Series. People come to me because they're wounded. Many are scared, and even there are those who are bruised simply because they feel that they are increasingly, for whatever reason, losing their ability to dream. Now, this P3 program is not for a person who's just looking to start a business, no, but rather for those of you out there who have been on your journey and you've been navigating within your divine purpose, but you still desire to elevate to that level that you have not reached yet. If this is appealing, if this describes you, then I want to have a chat with you. I want to hear your story. So use the link below to get registered for your free seat at P3, the Journey Series. And let's get started, one story at a time. I'll see you inside. Click the link. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. I'm feeling some kind of way today, y'all. And it's not just because it's Friday. Well, that had a little bit to do with it. But I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad to be alive. There's a lot of things going on in the world today that
I can't have a way of making us not feel too good. But you know what? When we come together, when we fulfill that promise of two or more, spiritual magic happens and it fixes things. It puts things back in order. It helps us to remember what's important and why we do the work we do, right? I know you guys listen. Oh my goodness. Still, my heart is just broken because of the a lot of things, but most recently that air disaster in Washington D.C. with the 60 some people on board. It's just I don't know what it is about it. It always just breaks my heart. But sending out prayers of healing and just coping moment to moment to the families and the loved ones of the victims of that crash. And all the other things that are going on in the world, the people in Gaza going home to nothing. There's just something everywhere. But that's why we are here, and that is why we do what we do. And today's guest, Lisa Heacock, she is a grief expert. She works with people on that. We're going to talk about that, amongst other things. She's a life coach. She's a whole bunch of things. But before I'm going to come back to Lisa, got a couple announcements for you. First of all, where are my manners? Good morning to you, beautiful people. You're looking great out there. And can I get an amen? Can I? That we are happy, just happy to be, right? Just happy to be. That's how I feel today. So I'm going to ring the bell of purpose. That is not a gimmick. It's not a prop. For those of you who have never been here before, it is an opportunity in my book, because every time I ring it on purpose, because there's some truth being spewed somewhere around here, and I want you to take it with you. You know, the truth has a ring to it, you all, just like that bell. And that's why I ring it. There you go. Okay. So I have a couple announcements for you, really fast. I'll do it fast. If you are in or around the Boston, Massachusetts area, I'll be there on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of March. Let me get that comment. Wait. Let me get that banner off. There we go. In Boston, 6,000 plus. Get this. They're all science chemists. They're chemists. I know, right? What will I have in common once I come off the stage? E equals MC square. I said that yesterday, but anyway, I'm excited. I'm going to be speaking, keynoting on the ripple effect, how we all make a difference with everything we do. So that's Sunday, March 2nd at the PitCon Conference and Exposition, held at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center, of course, in Boston, MA. So if you're around, you want to catch a cup of coffee or just talk, let Dr. Lauren know, and we'll catch up. Now, another thing, today is weigh-in day. You know, I'm doing this transformation thing. How can I get that to show up nicely? There you go. The Metabolic Balance Kitchen with my coach, Miss Jane. And you guys remember 1 month ago, not even a month ago, on the 5th of this month, well, the 4th of February, which is coming up. This is what I wear. Ooh, good googly moogly. Yes, look at that face. Ooh, Lord, oh my goodness. Good evening. I look like the Black Alfred Hitchcock. I am not kidding you. 198 pounds was the starting weight less than a month ago. So far, 23 pounds have left this body. And I'm excited. I am so excited. I am not kidding you all. Get over and check out Jane's book. You can find her information all over all my social media right now. I post every single meal I eat every single day, and I feel great. I really do. She'll be back on the show for the big reveal in about a month. In March, she'll be back when I will have crossed the finish line. So stay tuned for that. This is what I'm getting back to. Woo! Stop, y'all. Quit hating. I'm just playing. That was 52. Now we're going to see what I can do with 62, right? Okay. So listen, Lisa Heacock is here. Holistic Life Coaching is her brand, and she is in the UK. And she says that, I went to her website, you guys, and can you imagine losing 12 loved ones within a 22-month period, including both of her parents and a 24-year-old son-in-law? She says that the grief was nearly too much to bear. How could it not be? She thought she was drowning, carrying not only her own grief, but the grief of others. And see, this is what I love. Remember, if you've ever read the book, The Alchemist, the line that stuck with me out of that entire book was the one where it says, if a blessing ignored or missed becomes a curse. And you can never believe, it's hard to believe sometimes where blessings will originate. Sometimes in the darkest, ugliest places, something wonderful, a diamond, can be extracted from that situation, that experience that allows us. Same thing with me in foster care. If I hadn't lived all that horror, it wouldn't have brought me to this divine space that I share with you right here, right now. So there it is. We're going to get her in here. I hear her coming down the hallway. So share that. There's 565 of you. 75. Come on in, share the broadcast out. You're going to learn a lot today and get poured into in a big, big way. I know it for a fact. Here she comes. Put some hearts on the screen as we welcome Lisa. Hello, hello.
Hi there.
Oh, you're right on point.
Great.
Earlier, we had this lag going on where we had to wait before the other one could speak. Now it's caught up. See, God is good. How you doing today, Lisa?
Great. How are you? Well, congratulations on your weight loss and your health journey. How exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, you are where in the world?
I live in the middle of England, but what will throw people off is I absolutely do not sound British. So I am from Seattle, but I've lived in the UK for 19 years. So I'm in a place called Market Harborough, which is right in the middle of England, about an hour north of London.
Wow, lucky you. Well, now,
Yes.
what made you move to England? Was it you thought you were going to go visit and then ended up never leaving, one of those stories, or what?
No, never been here before, ever. So my husband at the time, our daughters were 10 and 11, and we were moving to the UK for him to get his PhD. And we'd never been to the UK. We sold everything we owned, 2 pieces of luggage, and that was it. We then had this adventure, and we were only going to be here for 3 years. And 19 years later, we're all here. It's home for us.
Do your daughters sound British?
So my oldest daughter, Bree, she sounds like me.
Okay.
Alexa, my youngest, who now hates her name thanks to Amazon.
I was going to say, don't say that too loud. She'll start talking.
I know. I have to be really careful with that.
So
she doesn't like her name now. She has this weird American, British, and there's all these different accents, regional accents. And she's lived in many different places of England. So people cannot literally figure out where she's from. Yeah.
Well, you tell Alexa she should convince her sister to change her name to Siri.
Yeah, yes.
Can you imagine the fun they would have then?
Imagine. And they've got great
goodness.
personalities, so they would be having a great time.
That's so funny. Listen, one of the things I love to do is leave the stage for about a minute and let the guest just, start the conversation today with what you woke up with on your heart today, and that's always a great place for us to come back in and officially get this party started. So I'm going to dip out, give it all to you. Just talk to the folks, and I'll be able to tell when it's time to pop back in, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
All you, take it away.
That's great. It's so great to be here. The passion that I have and the words that I want to say is that life can be a real dumpster fire at times. There's difficult things that happen in our life, and it can be a real roller coaster, but you do not need to do it alone. And you can fully live and fully grieve at the same time. Those two things can coexist. And so as we're speaking, I really want that to come across, that there is hope, there is healing. There's a lot of different healing modalities, which I'm sure we'll get into. And so with that, fully living, fully grieving, not having the guilt attached to the joy that you can actually feel, even when you're in the midst of loss and grief.
Okay, beautifully stated. Let me say hello to a couple people real quick. Oh, come on, you guys. Somebody get me the number. What was our record for last Friday? I'm going to try to beat that today. I got a feeling that we're gonna top our record from last week. But let me start. Robert, from Canada, good morning to you. Sherry McQueen, believe Michigan. Is it still Michigan, Sherry? How are you today? Thank you. Good morning to you too. Oh yes, Ira, David, Levy, how are you? So glad to. Well, I don't turn down a meal, but I probably will be eating differently when we go. Nice to see you, David. Yes, Ira, David, and we will do that. Listen, you guys. I want to just get started. I'm sure you heard about, especially being from the Seattle area. I'm sure you heard about the American airline and the Black Hawk thing and the loss of the tragedy. And there's so much of it in the world. First of all, people probably don't understand why somebody who went through what you've gone through, which is where we're going to start, would want to stay in that zone of, oh my God, grief, and more grief. Thank you, Sherry. Grand Rapids, outside Grand Rapids. Yes, I love Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm from Michigan. So is that how? Let's go back. First of all, address that. What were you doing before all the grief work?
Yes. So I worked in corporate. I worked for lawyers, and I was a practice manager.
Now, no wonder you're so used to depression.
Exactly. Amen to that. But then I worked with a bunch of engineers, and I was a team assistant, and I used to just assist them in their travel and do the administration stuff. But first, before all the losses, I worked with lawyers.
So tell us how it went down, that 22-month period.
Yeah.
You're walking along life's primrose path, and then number one shows up. Walk us down it. And you know what I'm saying. I'm sure you've been asked to do this before. Just, take us down and what happened in between. That's what I'm interested in. Number one and number two. Then number two and number three. Oh, you potty mouth. See how I did that? Number one and number two, potty mouth. My ADHD cracks me up. So listen, I'm not kidding, but you get what I'm saying. I'm really interested in the slide puzzle of how 1, 2, 3, all the way to 12. A lot of people would have just said, let me just be number 13, my damn self. I'm done. I just cannot do this. This isn't funny anymore. What were you doing? What was your life like? And who was number one?
Yes, good question. So it was actually January 2019. Now, my family is in Seattle, and I'm 4,000 miles away. And your parents aren't getting any younger. So you just know that you're going to probably get some of these phone calls.
Sure.
But the very first phone call was at the beginning of January. My niece from my ex-husband's side of the family passed away from a hereditary illness. And we lost her. She was in her early 30s.
Oh.
Yeah. And then a week later, I got a message on Facebook from my mom, and it was my early morning, her late night, that said, Lisa, can you talk? And I was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? She said, can you just talk? And I just knew that something wasn't right. And that was when she told me that my dad was diagnosed with brain cancer. Oh. And so that really, even with the two, and my dad hadn't even, passed, it was like the earth opened up and swallowed me whole. I was very close, I'm very close to my parents. They're wonderful, wonderful human beings. And I didn't know what to do. And at one point then, after my dad had his surgery a few months later, they couldn't remove any of the tumor. It was way too advanced. So we all knew that he was going to pass away. And I quit my job. I said to my husband at the time, I said, I've got to go. I've got to go take care of my dad. Even though I have an older brother who lived locally, I have to take care of my dad. And I have to take care of my mom.
Your job?
Yeah.
Okay. So you wanted to go there. You couldn't. So there was, 19. Remote wasn't a big deal, a big thing then.
No, and I needed to be there to see what was
Focus.
happening. And I
Yeah, yeah.
needed to, and I really felt for me, I needed to take care of my dad. And I knew because my parents had been together forever that my mom absolutely needed me. So I moved in and I just said to my husband, and so I've got to go. Like, this is, and he grew up in my home. So he loves my parents. So that was the first. So while I was living there for the 7 months and caring for my dad before he passed,
Mm-hmm.
I had friends and friends' children who were passing away during that time. So it was every time, it felt like every time the phone rang or a message that somebody had passed. And my dad passed away July of 2018. And after he passed away, I moved back home and I needed to get a new job. That was when I worked with engineers. Um, and my mom came to visit several months later. It was weird because she got off the plane without my dad. Every time they'd come,
Mm.
they were together. And but she stayed for a couple months and we were like, let's go do some of the things you want to do. So we went and saw Shakespeare's home and Anne Hathaway's house. And we spent this 2 months together. She saw the girls and it was a great time. But when I was dropping her off at the airport, I hugged her. She was crying. I was keeping it together. I was being strong. I said goodbye to my mom, and I did not know that that would be the last time that I would hug my
Oh,
mom.
Lord,
Yeah.
really?
Because a few months later, we talked every day, and she wasn't answering my Facebook Messenger. She wasn't answering her phone. And I was like, what? Something's not right. I knew something wasn't right. So I called my brother. I called my mom's best friends. I'm like, get over there. Get over there. And I was just sitting here 4,000 miles away waiting for the phone call that my mom passed away in her sleep peacefully. But that sudden loss is different than the anticipatory grief.
Yeah, it
So,
is. Catches you
right?
kind of off guard. No preparation.
Exactly. So I went back and did another eulogy. And I stood up and said, love you people at the church. Great. Love you guys. I'm so sick of seeing you. Like,
Okay.
we're done here. Right. Then it was about going through a childhood home with all of their stuff. And so I was there for 3 weeks, but obviously I had to come back home and my girls had come as well. And we come back to the UK, and within 2 months, almost to the day, in the middle of the night, I get a call that my 24-year-old son-in-law had passed away from a fall in front of my daughter and coworkers here in the UK. And
Like
we were,
that's like on the spot.
yeah, yeah. And
Oh,
and that's the worst because I was like, I was tapping my head and just like, wake up, Lisa. I thought I was having a nightmare. You're in shock. You cannot believe what you're actually hearing. So we got in the car in the middle of the night and just had to get to my daughter. We just had to get to her. They'd been together since they were 16, soulmates, love of her life. And
oh,
again, in between that is friends, children. It
yeah.
just that, but Jack was the last of the 12.
Wow.
Mm.
So, and what's interesting is I have a couple friends and a coaching client or two who, from that same period, right in that period during COVID, right after COVID, had a string of losses. It was like people dropping like flies. And, yes, some were COVID related, but not everybody,
Yeah, none of these. No, none of
none of
these
those were
were
COVID for
COVID.
you.
Yep.
Wow.
None.
So, what was happening in your mind? How do you not take it personally? Like, who next? Who next? What about me? And so, how are you processing it? And
Honestly, it's a really good question, Lauren. Like, I actually said to friends, I think I'm cursed. Like it
That's what I was
starts.
wondering, because I
Yeah,
would have thought that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like the logic tells you you're not, but because it was every time the phone rang,
Oh,
every time anything happened, I was just waiting. I'm like, who died now? And the trauma that sits in your body, you literally feel it in your cells. And so your anxiety is heightened, everything is heightened, and yet it's almost like you have no energy to brush your teeth. It's so, your grief fog is a real thing. And for me, having so many losses in such a short period of time is compound grief. So it's
hmm.
one loss on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. Who do you grieve? How do you grieve? What do you grieve? And
How do you
the
split your grief?
yeah, I learned a lot. And so I was very pro therapy. So that was my very first protocol. I thought I got to find a bereavement counselor. And so thankfully, I found a wonderful woman who I spent a year and a half with, who went into the trenches with me. So I had a great support group of friends, my best friends in Seattle. And then there were toxic or maybe not so helpful people that I had to put on the shelf or kick off the shelf out of my life completely, right? I had to protect my energy. And
What
I
was
would
that
tell,
all about? Okay. Oh, this is getting good. No, sorry.
I get it. I
Well,
get it.
there's so many things. There's so many different directions. But let's go to that one. People, I didn't expect that. When you said toxic, why? What were they? What was it? The old get over it kind of people? Or
Yeah, I
what
mean,
was it?
I didn't really get loads of those kind of comments. Sometimes I always wonder, like, are people afraid of me because they know I'll just tell them where it's at. I didn't get a lot of those, but I did get the ones I wrote a free guide on this, because how do we support loved ones who are grieving? What to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do. So when someone says, oh, they're in a better place, I'm like, well, they need to be here. Like, don't say that to somebody who's in grief, So for me, that was a really big thing that I learned of what helped me in my processing of grief, what people did. Um, and so for me, I learned that you grieve one person at a time. Grieving all of it, that is too much. It's way too much. So one of the tools that I started doing, based on a grief expert, David Kessler in the States, I certified under him, is he said, if you wake up and you have a memory of your mom, that's who you grieve. If you wake up or you see a watch and that's your dad's watch,
You
grieve
grieve
your
your dad.
dad. If I see a sign of some sort and I think of Jack, that's my son-in-law, that's who I grieve. And everybody else kind of has to be set aside, because it is way too much.
That right there. So talk about that. Where'd you learn that? Or did you? You just said that's, which is a contraction for that is, my son-in-law, Jack. And you didn't say was.
No.
You said is. How
Yes.
important is that?
For me, it is everything. It's not was my dad, was my son-in-law, was my mom. They're
Right.
my mom. They're, for me, and everybody has their
That will
own
never
belief,
change.
but that will never change. And they are with me. They are with me. I know it. I know it. Signs and synchronicities, but they're not a was, and to honor their life and what they brought into my life. They are and is. They are a being. They're a human being that made a huge impact in my life, especially,
Yeah,
yeah, obviously my parents. I share
of
DNA,
course.
but that is language is very important. And for me, it's really important to say my mom and dad is my mom
Lisa,
and dad.
do you believe, because you've experienced pretty much all of it, a nice lion's share of different scenarios, if you will, between the 12 people, from a person who's lived a full life but contracted a disease that took him, your dad, your mom who was peaceful in her sleep but had a full life, and then Jack, young and a senseless death. Doesn't make sense. Why does it? So, do you believe one category of how a person passes or leaves is more difficult to grieve than the next?
I would say, again, just quoting David Kessler, because it's so true, is that your grief is the worst grief because it's yours. So it doesn't matter how someone passes, the loss is the loss, the grief is the grief. So I can only speak on my own. I would never
Sure.
put that on anyone. For me, sudden loss has its own different experiences. There's no goodbyes. It's just sudden, and there's nothing. Whereas with my dad, it had its own, it was difficult watching him change and become weak. And you're
Sure.
grieving hundreds of losses as the months are going, right? But I knew that he was going to pass. So we made memories. We spent time together. I got to tell him everything. We had a wonderful time together as
Yeah.
a family.
Yeah.
My mom, she just left. And it was like, wait a minute, what? And I thought in many ways, even though it was extremely painful, I thought it is the way it's supposed to be. My mom and dad passed away 14 months apart. My mom couldn't live without my
Without her
dad. And
soulmate.
now they're together.
No,
And
they're together.
so it made sense in that way.
Mhm.
Jack and my other really good friends lost their only son, Zach, actually on my dad's birthday, which is one of the others. He was 20. He was killed in a car accident. Doesn't make sense. It's out of order. It's hard to put into any kind of category other than tragic and so incredibly painful.
Yeah.
Friends who lost their 10-year-old daughter to brain cancer.
Yeah.
Like, this is not right, right?
No. And I'm gonna tell you something. With my experience, I've buried two mothers, the adopted one, but I was a kid. I was, 10. And that's when my journey in foster care began. But then my birth mother, who I didn't even meet until I was 32, but I had her for 20 years. And it was with her. It was a different experience because I was a kid before, and I was, it threw me into a world that I had to acclimate to. And that kind of grabbed me. And I didn't get a chance to grieve until I was 26 when I went to hypnotherapy and realized I had never grieved her, because I was getting pinched by my adopted brother in the funeral. Don't cry. Guys don't cry. And so I held it in. And then 2 days later, they snatched me from the family, and it got buried somewhere for all those years. Now, with my birth mother, what I had never known, because I was moving around, I wasn't touched by death. If people in foster homes had people die, I didn't know them in most cases. So it didn't touch me. I had no connection until my birth mom. And what I learned, and still, it's not as difficult now as it was in the beginning. She died in 2012. But for a couple years, I would wake up and I would listen to a voicemail that I kept, or I would go, oh my God, let me call mom. Oh, wait. And I woke up and I realized I was grieving more than her absence. I was grieving the void that her absence left. That there was this big empty space that no one else could ever fill.
Yeah.
And it just, I would get upset. I'd get pissed off when I couldn't share some good news with her. Until I started realizing that she was behind a lot of the blessing that was finding me. I knew she was interceding wherever she was on my behalf, and that helped. But let me ask you this: in your work with people, first of all, why do I get a feeling that you turned to this work and became certified in grief counseling in order to help heal yourself. Talk about that. And has it worked? And how do you not get sad every time somebody calls you? And because you must be an empath at heart.
Yes. Yes, I am. Yes. I mean, it's a really good question. And, I went through, I mean, it changes you and it changes the trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
So I'm typing away, doing my TA work for a bunch of engineers. And I hear this like, I mean, it wasn't like audible, but it was like, Lisa, you need to be a life coach. Right. And I thought, I didn't even know what that was. I had to Google it. What's a life coach? What do they do? And then as I read, I was like, I've done this like a lot in my life, especially in the States. I'm like, oh, is that what that is? So I went down the route of becoming certified and I went through all the accreditation. I just started doing all of that. And then what ended up happening was I thought, yes, when they talk about niching, I'm like, oh, I can niche personal development, taking action. If someone feels stuck, we can do all of that, kick out the roadblocks, and they can start to live this life. But there was this kind of gnawing about grief. And I thought, oh, am I healed enough? Am I ready? Am I okay enough to help support others? And really, it came back to it's your calling.
I was just going to say, it has to be.
Yeah.
It can't be a hobby. Who would want that as a hobby? And even to get paid big bucks, it still would be that thing that would feel to me like every time it's a gut punch.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you keep yourself out of the swamp?
Yes, it's a good question. I used so many healing modalities when I was going through the grief process. So I do like sound baths and energy healing, and like I tried everything from hiking in nature and mindset work, and like I had coaches myself. I did all of those things that I could think of to make sure that I wasn't going to be in a corner, not being able to get out of my fetal position.
Right.
So that for me, I then was able to use those tools. But when I am supporting others, I have the grounding techniques. I understand that I'm going to that place with them, but I'm not going to stay there. I can't carry their grief. So it is a real tool. It's a real practice. You have to really shake it off, and give them the tools. I'm here for them. It's about them, not me. And that I think is really important. And doing this work does heal a part of you, because it's
At
like
the same time,
mom and dad proud of you. They're like, yes, do this thing, Lisa, help heal those who are hurting, which is what I grew up. That's what they modeled all of my life.
Anyway, can I ask something? And I mean, who hasn't seen the Lifetime movies on this subject, this topic? There's so many of them. What I'm getting at is, you mentioned your friends who had the daughter that was 10 years old, brain cancer. Why is it that so many couples that lose a child, of course it's out of order, like you said earlier, but why is it so many couples divorce after they lose a child? What is that? Why is it? Is it because they're grieving individually? Is it because it's so different for each person? They blame each other. What happens in there? Because the majority of people, that's what the end result is. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, a lot of individuals will divorce. My friends have not. They've went on to have more children. That is usually the reason. So he's not grieving like I am. He doesn't want to talk about her or him. He's not crying. He's just going
Doesn't
to
even
work.
matter to you. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So this is very stereotypical, but let's just say generally the man will then focus on work. He'll distract himself. He'll make sure the house is not falling apart. He'll do the projects, he'll do the things, but he doesn't want to celebrate a birthday or talk, while she wants photos and talk about him and celebrate birthdays and do those things. And that really, everybody grieves differently and everybody processes differently. But in a relationship, they both have lost something so precious. They've lost their child, that it has to change you. So there's a lot of hard work. And usually a third party person, like a counselor or a coach or somebody, can help them process that together. And if they don't really have that support, I can see how it would just eat away. Or you might feel guilty yourself, right? So if you're feeling guilty, because guilt and grief go hand in hand, whether we like it or not, we haven't done anything wrong, but somehow we have this guilt and grief and anger and grief. And so what do? We take it out on the person that we are closest to, who is also grieving.
Lisa, what about danger zones? For instance, people that say leave the bedroom of the person the same. They won't touch it or change anything for years. I know a friend whose daughter committed suicide, and that room is just the way it was. And you better not even think about even cracking the door, looking in there, asking about it. Or people that keep the clothes and things, can't give them away, and that sort of thing. What is the right way, or what's it?
Yeah. I mean, is there a right way?
Oh.
Is there a wrong way? I mean, the thing is that everybody, because we've already said, everybody grieves differently. The suffering is so great that the idea of healing or moving forward is as if I do that, then that means I'm okay and people are going to think I'm okay. Or perhaps they just can't face it right now. And that's okay too. I mean, they might just not be ready. Now, I would say there is a difference between grieving and suffering. So if you're suffering and there's the prolonged grief and they haven't taken any steps to kind of heal, which does not mean get over it at all or forget about, it is just that they're sitting in that suffering, and you don't need to sit in that suffering. There is help out there. Find a therapist, find somebody who can help you understand that actually you're not broken, you're not crazy, you're grieving. And so they're not crazy, they're not broken in that sense. They just haven't gotten to that point where they feel like they can enter the room, so to speak.
Well, and you know what? I want to throw this extra piece. I forgot to mention it. The person I spoke of that I said the daughter committed suicide, it took her probably, I'd say 7 years to get past it and change it up. And she was a licensed grief therapist herself.
Yes.
Which I found very interesting.
Yes. I was just speaking to somebody about that who works in the field of grief. But it wasn't until they lost somebody
their own
that there was like, oh my God, like this is wow.
It comes swooping in a totally different way. And that's what she says about, plus it was her only child.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was in her house.
Oh.
Right. So let's go here. Let's go to the healing of others and how a person, what kind of conversation should they start having with themselves that can let them, that can ease them down the road to making the choice of finding a grief counselor or a therapist or just a confidant, a mentor, someone to put their hand inside the other person's hand so they don't feel so alone. Because a lot of people, like, I've been at how many, especially African American funerals, that somebody throws themselves on the casket, take me with you, and a lot of people are afraid that someone's going to kill themselves because they can't live without the person. So anyway, what would you say the conversation, how to know when you're ready, or what should you say to yourself when you want to live again, you want to breathe again, you want it not to feel so horrible again, you want to go back to happiness and things? Give us some tips on how we can help others that we see going through and we feel helpless, or what if it is us and again we feel helpless? I think that's the number one reason grief is so heavy. You feel helpless. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing.
Yeah. Yes, I think when it's your own grief, it is really about being soft with yourself. Like when they say be kind to yourself, it is really about validating the actual heartbreak, that kind of that soul crushing pain, because that is what it feels like. So being really soft with yourself is really important. And that also means speaking softly to yourself, right? Being kind to yourself. Like, this is a really horrible thing that has happened to you. And so speaking kind to yourself, but also I believe that we all have this knowing. I believe that we have this knowing within us when the time is happening, when you start to lift your head up and just kind of look around at the world again. Because what happens, that is what it feels like. Everybody's living their life. And it's like, why is the world still spinning? Like, why is the earth still spinning? Like, hey, my
Yes.
son-in-law died.
What is wrong with you? How can you go out?
Yeah.
Right.
Start
I remember
tomorrow.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember
Yeah.
that. I'd be
And it's
pissed
like,
on Facebook. I'd see sisters and brothers going out and look at you.
yeah.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself. How can you did you even love her? I mean,
Yes.
and I would take it out
Exactly.
on them. Like, I'd let their calls go to voicemail, and I get on the phone with them. Yeah, whatever. It's just interesting. What about
Yeah.
this piece? How much time? We're doing good on time. Okay. Anniversaries of deaths. For you, for instance, that string of people, is it a good, how do we handle the anniversaries when it's, it's 1 year, it's a year, 5 years, whatever? Anything on that? Any protocol?
I mean, there's no rules, which is, I think, in many ways really freeing, because it does, some people, they only celebrate the birthdays. They don't want to celebrate the death anniversary. That is not what they want to be remembered by. But for me, both were important. And like you said, I felt like I was constantly going and having a coffee or a cake or something in celebration of the person. So memorializing individuals, for some, on the day that they passed, isn't about necessarily going into like all the memories of that, but it is honoring their life and honoring their death. But for some, they just would rather do the birthdays. Some don't want to face any of it and just don't even think about it. What I have known to be true for me and for many of my clients is the lead up to the day that someone passed is actually worse. Because we build this up and then the day comes and then it's like, okay, whew, and they got through it, and then they can keep going because it comes in waves. And I always tell clients, we're going to pad yourself. We're going to pad you, right? It's like, we're going to pad it up. We're going to shore you up, give you the tools. So when the day happens, whatever you decide to do, whether that's go for a walk or stay in bed or watch
Release
Netflix,
some
whatever.
blues, or, right.
Whatever you decide to do, go to the cemetery if there is a cemetery, whatever it is that you decide to do, we're going to shore you up so that your nervous system is calm, so that you aren't in this state of anxiety when it's newly 1 year, even 2 years. Again, there's no dates. We can't just go, you'll be over it in a year or two. I mean, that doesn't work that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So what I always tell people is what you can do is you can learn to create a life of passion and purpose around your pain. You take it with you. It never goes away. But if you have the tools, then when that day comes, you're like, oh, pull that tool out of the tool belt. If you don't have that, it's a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But give yourself a break. That's
what
painful.
Brian, that's what Robert says right there. That's exactly why I left that comment hanging. He says, learning to show yourself some grace. And I think that is the key right there, Robert. Great comment and insight. And I see you shaking your head in agreement, Lisa. One last question as we round out this hour. Your daughter who lost Jack, in that moment and since, how did you show up for her? In what order? Did you show up as mom? Did you show up as grief counselor? Did you show up as both? How did you show up?
I wasn't a grief coach at the time,
Okay.
So I am mom. I am full on mom. What happens
today,
in loss?
what about today? Because I bet it pops up in, how could it not?
Yeah. 2019, she's now just starting to kind of like date a little bit.
And come out of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And both of them, my daughters live together actually. And so they, my oldest daughter lost her brother-in-law who she loves. So there's a lot of pain, but we rallied around each other and we rallied around her. And it was just about keeping her safe, making sure that she wasn't going to do anything, harm herself, which she assured us she wasn't. She's very close to Jack's parents and brother. And then they all have this huge group of friends. So she has like 20 brothers, it's like so this is one of the things, this support system that has helped her. She lost a lot of weight that she didn't need to lose. She was in trauma, but it was about, I said to her, just do one thing today. You don't have to, if that's just brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
Pressure's off, Lex.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to do these things, but you could just see the heartbreak, the trauma. And it's not a mom fix. I could not fix this. Right. And that for me was the hardest part. So when we talk about carrying our own grief and carrying the grief of others, that's what I mean. I'm carrying my daughter's grief, carrying my mom's grief. My daughter's resilient. She she saw a therapist and a coach. He was both a therapist and coach. And again, she had massive amounts of support.
Yeah, that's a big piece. Wow. Lisa has said, what a great story, even though it's not one that, isn't a bedtime story, but still within it is tons of help, healing, and encouragement. So I really hats off to you for taking such a hard road that many of us could not handle. We just don't have it. And your resilience and your grit are really, really something to be proud of. So thank you for being here today. And listen, you all, scrolling along the bottom of your screen right now is the Facebook link for Lisa if you want to ask questions, or better yet, head over to her website where you can find the entire menu of offerings that she has as far as helping people ease a little suffering in their lives and in the world. So head over, you won't be sorry, and write it down. A death is a part of life, and you may not need her today, but keep living and you will. So I just want to say that. Thank you, Lisa. Thank all of you. Be blessed. It's Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. Get out there and love up on yourself so you can love up on others. And I, hopefully, God willing, will meet you Monday morning over on the front porch, where together you and I can have another illuminated conversation. And remember, find one E and one R. Take everything you already are to another level. Great to greater, bright to brighter, strong to stronger, bold to bolder. And my personal favorite, kind to kinder. Do that, won't you please? And remember, don't let my screen door slam on your way out of here. And Dr. Lauren tells you every day, and he means it, I love, love, love you. And there's not a damn thing you can do about that. So, see you. Have the best day. Make it the best day. Lisa, great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Show me your soul. Baby, I'll show you mine. Show me your soul. Honey, it's way past time. How expensive do I have to be? Need I spell it out before you get it, baby? Show me your soul. And honey, I'll show you mine. I'll show you mine.